Yes, our number here, 087 77 11 103. Now, there is a dementia information meeting, and it is tonight at 8 p.m. in Arklow. And one of the speakers is Ronan Smith, who is an actor and director and continues to work at the Gay Theatre, though he was diagnosed with early dementia in 2014 at the age of only 56. Ronan, good morning.
Good morning, how are you?
Okay, thank you. People would hear this and say at a very young age, 56, to be showing signs of dementia. How did you know that this was going to be a factor in your life?
Well, the reality is that I had a previous experience of dementia through my father's struggle with the illness and the fact that I cared for him during that period in a very particular way, kind of working with him because he refused to give up work. And refused to admit that he even had anything wrong with him. So I knew the nature of the condition. And so when I began to feel that I was actually, beginning to sense and perceive certain deficiencies in my kind of performance and functioning, I was probably very early in looking to have a diagnosis made because of that previous experience.
And these were experiences that other people might say, oh, sure, I'm just getting a little bit older or something like that. And
exactly. I was able to kind of see that the possibility was there that this was more of a pattern than just that, senior moment kind of experience that so many people would have, any time from late 50s into 60s. But there is a distinct difference, and that is identifiable through a proper diagnosis, a proper examination procedure, and it can be differentiated from just the ordinary aging process.
Do we take it that dementia is hereditary?
No, it's in fact it is very unusual for it to be hereditary. I do have a hereditary what would you call it, a version of the disease, but that's a very small amount of the actual whole entire patient cohort. It's in fact normally they say statistically it's only between 1 to 5% of dementia cases are inherited, and it's called FAD, familial Alzheimer's disease, but it's not much of a fad, as you can see from the statistics.
Yes. And practically, how does it affect you?
Well, very marginally so far, and that's certainly something to be welcomed. I would only have very, I suppose, occasional, and they could be literally perceived as the occasional senior moment. So there's nothing very extreme happening, but I did have a genetic analysis done, so I'm confirmed as having the diagnosis. And I would be aware of having some early, symptoms, which would be, very simply that something you should know and recollect. You can't know and recollect at the time that you need to recollect it. So it is, a memory deficiency. But it's very marginal in my personal experience at the moment. And I think that for anybody who's in early stages, it is likely to be, marginal for a certain period of time. And that period of time could be quite extensive. So my own main I suppose, point that I wish to contribute to in terms of campaigning for greater understanding of the condition is that the early stages need to be given a great deal more scope. You don't stop your life. You don't leave your job. You don't have to do these things, but there is a sense in which, because of the way the disease is understood, that once you get the diagnosis, people seem to get very fatalistic and, depressed and feel, oh, this is all awful from now. It's not. It's livable with for quite a while. Now, how long is not clear. It's different in each individual case. But, for me, it's just very much a point to make that, look, you can live with this and you can cope with this and you can continue working, continue living, continue social, interaction with people. You can contribute to society. You can be an effective member of society for quite some time, and that people should try to realise that opportunity.
Can it be slowed or even halted?
Yeah, I think it can, and I think some of the things I'm doing are helping to slow it in my own case. I think that it is certainly well regarded now as scientific knowledge that, good exercise, a good diet, maintaining sleep patterns. There are ways in which you can live a more healthy life, and that will keep the progression at abeyance to a certain degree. The more you do of that, the more you can keep it in abeyance. So, I think it's really worth engaging with all those possibilities, and that's the kind of thing that I'd like to contribute to the information evening this evening, to give people some kind of positivism, because unfortunately, there is quite a sense of, of fatalism attending to dementia illnesses, that people feel, oh my God, this is the end the minute you get the diagnosis, and that simply is not the case.
Yeah, are you following the same pattern as your father?
No, I'm not, in the sense that no pattern is going to be the same completely, because each individual person and their lifestyle, the disease will progress somewhat differently. I think my father, he hid his disease for a very long time from everyone, including his family, and absolutely from his GP. And he was a person who was very obsessed with his work, and he wanted to keep working, so he just didn't want to let anyone know he was having any difficulties. So his pattern is a little bit hard to completely unpick, but with knowledge now, looking back retrospectively, we could see that he was actually beginning to function less well, maybe 2-3 years before it began to become particularly noticeable to anyone else. So it's a very gradual process, and the rate of progression is very different for each individual person.
You must have welcomed the British government's commitment to investing in research for dementia.
Yes, yeah. And in fairness, there's good research going on all around the globe. There's a massive amount of research going into dementia, because this is a global problem. The incidence of dementia is rising, quite noticeably in all countries, not just specific ones, not just developing countries, not just developed world, but globally it is increasing, and it is a huge problem. So the drug companies are researching like bilio, because there's a lot of money to be made if they come up with a cure.
Because money can be made in maintenance rather than cures, I suppose. That's
true. That's true. But in this, the disease, like Alzheimer's, is progressive and terminal at the moment. And if somebody can break that and prove it to be curable, they will be sitting on quite a money pile.
Indeed. And do we know what stage that is at the moment?
Well, I think it's absolutely on the cusp of a breakthrough. Now, I know that sounds dramatic, but it is the reality. Now, the problem is you can remain on the cusp pretty much indefinitely, until you make the breakthrough. But what I'm saying, I suppose, is that the pressure for a breakthrough is really immense, and that's why I'm, certainly very positive in terms of having, I think, a rational hope that there will be a cure. So I'm not being fatalistic about this. I have a disease that currently is incurable, but I'm going to do my best to keep it at bay, because I do believe a cure will come.
Do we know the causes?
No, not really. Not really. Obviously the genetic cohort of people with the disease, it's a very small cohort, as I say. It's not very many, small percentage. It may have that genetic trace, but outside of that, there really is no adequate solution or explanation. They still don't quite know why it will emerge in one individual and not in another.
Yes. So what will you be saying to this meeting tonight?
Well, I suppose my main point is, and certainly what I find myself saying as I try to talk about this, is that it's mostly to do with, don't be fatalistic about it. Don't be, depressed to the point of withdrawing from society about it. And also talk about it, be open about it, because I do think there's a lot of social unease around it. People are embarrassed. They don't know how to handle a situation if somebody is beginning to dysfunction in this way. And I just think the first thing that makes it easier and for people to live with the disease is for it to be open for discussion, that you can talk about it, that you can announce the fact that you're concerned, that you can announce the fact that you have a diagnosis without people running away from you and feeling, oh my God, I can't talk about that. I'm awkward. I feel awkward. I'm embarrassed. And I think that, really that embarrassment builds up to create a stigma. People are avoided if if they have the condition, and are making people feel uncomfortable to socialise with them or spend time with them. And I just think that's really unnecessary, and I would hope that people would be open to accepting it just as a disease that has to be lived with like many others.
Well, that's a very interesting conversation this morning, Ronan, and thank you very much indeed for your time. I believe you're from Blessington, is that right?
I am indeed, yes, around the lakes.
Right, very good. And you're making the trip over the mountains.
I will be.
Down to Arklow, which is tonight at 8 o'clock in Áras Lorcan in Castle Park in Arklow. And other speakers as well. Donald Murphy from the Alzheimer's Society of Ireland. There's a nurse there, Jackie O'Toole, and also Patrick Sheehan, who will look at legal aspects and entitlements as well. So a full evening on this particular subject tonight, and Ronan himself will be speaking. Ronan Smith, thank you very much indeed.
Not at all. Good to talk to you.
Good man yourself. Thank you.
Bye now.